Good day everyone, Dactablab here. So I've been around for more than a year now. I guess it's time we invigorate some of those old videos of mine. And given the season, what better moment to try to sneak into the algorithm. So shipping, something all good fandoms live and die for. More often than not, this being the actual source of their demise. But surprisingly, Arknights has managed to keep a somewhat healthy shipping among their ranks, which is helped by the fact that not everyone is interested in the main character, having their own goals, ideas, and of course, preferences, making it easier for ships to develop more naturally in turn. And thus I decided to make a video about it 1 year ago, though these are some of my least seen videos. And since more information had been released, it gives me more ground to base my nonsense with, rather than guess blindly explaining. And this video will be about analyzing Arknights ships suggested by my viewers, plus 3 of mine, seeing how will they fit with one another while considering their own personal traits and known lore. Of course, some things will be bent a little, like considering that each part of the couple will be interested in a relationship despite such information never being stated in lore. However, that won't mean everyone will get an automatic pass. This is an appraisal after all. If there is too much info pointing at them not working out, then I'm afraid I will call them as such. One of the changes from the original is that I will not be using tier maker, as it will be too annoying having to make each couple once more. But I will keep in a similar yet more simplistic ranking, which are high chemistry, for couples that could work out given the information at hand and their compatibility, considering both their personalities and lore. However, romantic chemistry can still be left in the air. Good friends, for couples that bond well with one another, yet I cannot see them developing a romantic scenario. But hey, sometimes being good friends is better than being lovers. And finally, can see it, for couples which only work in the fans' minds, as nothing from their personalities to their lore can sustain them being together. Nothing wrong with people liking these ships, but I doubt they will be hinted at anytime soon. Plus a new extra word, if by any chance we get enough hits of a couple being subtly supported by the developers themselves, as for example these two, then they will also be granted the ship of approval. This will only be granted to couples where something seems to be brewing behind the scenes, but which can be properly turned into canon for obvious reasons. It is not like canon has ever stopped us though. Another thing to point out, with only one exception, characters yet to be introduced in Global will not be taken into consideration. I should have added that in the rules, my bad. The reason? Simply, I don't want to get spoiled. With that out of the way, let us start. These are Arknights ships analysis, chosen by the community. Also from here on, this will be mostly my thoughts, not so much a script. Let us begin. Pokersmack asks for Noircorn and Yato. This ship is very old. As a matter of fact, the game itself has hinted at something from the very beginning. It wasn't until the newer collaboration that we got a more direct confirmation. While they are not a couple, Noir is clearly interested. He's just being too shy and probably holding back because of their previous background. Yet there is something there. Not to mention the good rapport they have with one another, in missions and outside of them, meaning that they have already a very good level of collaboration between one another. Personality-wise, I think I can see it, mostly because of how calm both of them seem to be. Noir seems to be a more active character, seeing how he's always been the big brother to everyone he knows. Meanwhile, Yato is more of a solo player, the one who gets things done, transforming the both of them into a relatively good teamwork, again as seen in the event. So yeah, I will say they have very good chemistry, while also giving them the very first ship of approval, since clearly the developers shipped them as well. Only time will tell if this will work out. Next one. Ice Sneakers asks about Exia and Lapland. Well, considering they're part of the Texas harem, it was inevitable that this kind of mixing will happen. At first I didn't see it, mostly because there was no confirmation about Lapland knowing everyone else besides Texas, and even then we didn't know if they interacted. But thanks to Il Siracusano we managed to know that, yes, they have interacted in the past, to the point that Exia does know about Lapland, as seen in Il Siracusano. Personality-wise, this is a bit harder, ironically not because of Lapland, but because of Exia. As every Sancta, we don't know exactly what she's thinking about, due to the whole mental link thingy. Granted, Exe is one of those Sancta that, despite not having the link, still tries to have a genuine connection with other individuals. Which is to say that she is very easy to make friends with. Lapland, on the other hand, is pretty much an agent of chaos. She's someone who has suffered a lot in her life, and by the end of the event, she has finally discovered that she is free to do as she pleases. Even more. Seriously, I don't envy Sarah's job right now. Returning to the couple, I think they will be very good friends, given how Exia doesn't seem to bat an eye whenever there's a lot of carnage in front of her. If anything, she seems to enjoy it, so they could have that in common. Romantically, I don't think they will be apt for it. And while the two of them could make a great battle couple, I just cannot see them beyond being very good friends. Next one. LNR says SMT, interesting name, as for Mephisto and Faust. Okay, I think it's no secret my feelings for the twat. But Faust, on the other hand, is a completely different story. I think he is one of the best written characters in the game so far, feeling guilty for allowing Mephisto to turn into the monster he was. Yet at the same time, Faust was everything for Mephisto. While shocked to the full with trauma and a lot of psychopathic tendencies, Mephisto still cared for Faust, to the point that he completely gave up in everything once he knew Faust was no longer around. And even his mutated form was nothing but him crying and singing. So yeah, I think the relationship was far more than just brother in arms. I mean, they did look after each other from a very long time, even before joining Reunion. And again, there's this image. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that they had good chemistry. And when it hurts me, I will also give them the ship of approval. Clearly, even the developers thought they could have been something more, have they not crossed paths with a certain Snake. Next one we have Core Alpha, asked for Mjolnir and Penance. Honestly, I'm not that surprised this ship appeared. For instance, we have one of the more basic reasons behind some random ships, namely that they appeared relatively close to one another. But beside that, there's also the fact that, stylistically speaking, they look good together. It's a matter of complementing aesthetics, the elegant suits, the somewhat archaic pieces of armor, and the stoic semblances. Considering their personalities, that's when things go down. For once, Mjolnir is completely detached of everything as of right now, feeling betrayed by reality and just wanting to... As a matter of fact, I don't even know what he's looking for life right now. He just arose because he happened to cross paths with. Not so much that he believes in their ideals. If anything, he only criticizes us a lot. Penance, on the other hand, it's the complete opposite. Yes, she's still serious and very stoic, but she still has very high hopes for the future. She still believes the world can be a better place. I will say she is pretty much Siracusa's version of nerd, in a sense that despite how corrupted the system is, she's still trying to fix it. So, if they were to come together, other than mutual respect, I don't see them getting close, not even as friends, because of the aforementioned difference in ideals. Thus, I'm afraid that this ship is the very first one I think. I don't see it. They do look good together though. Mecha Julia instead asks about Mjolnir and Helagor. I mean, I have seen weirder ships, but again, I think this is a matter of aesthetics. While Mjolnir clearly has his years, he's nowhere near as mature as Helagor. But I'm gonna cut this one short. It's the same thing as with Penance. While Helagor is far more, I'm gonna say, cynical, he still believes that the future can be improved. While again, Mjolnir is completely against that notion. He will go and fight someone in order to stop a massacre, but only because it's the fastest way to get things done. Helagor, on the other hand, believes that so long there is someone worth protecting, he will keep raising his sword. So I'm afraid that this one, I also don't see it. Though I think it could also turn into a friendship, since Helagor is not exactly the go and change the world kind of guy. He will help others, but he doesn't seem the point of doing it himself, for now. We then ask about Sharp and Degenbrecher, two background characters, however with enough information to make a somewhat safe assumption. The one we clearly know more about is Sharp, given that he's an operator and we can read part of his files. We know he's very professional, stoic and to the point, and while he says everything he does is for his job, we can see that there is more about it. Mostly that he shares Rhodes' ideals. He wouldn't be an elite operator otherwise. So while he doesn't shout them like Mia or Blaze, Sharp clearly believes in Rhodes' cause, making him a very compassionate individual. On the hand, okay, I'm gonna call her Black Knight, apologies. In Black Knight's case, we know she's also very professional, but unlike Sharp, she's nowhere near as stoic. She seems to treat with certain disdain those weaker than her. Yet this doesn't come as a bad thing, because we have also seen that she's very respectful of those she sees as her equal. As we saw at the end of Break the Ice, she also shown respect for Sharp, implying that even as arrogant as she seems to be sometimes, the good Colombian managed to meet her standards. So I think there's good ground for them to hit it off, but at the same time I'm afraid there is not much information regarding the Black Knight to go further on. We will have to wait for her to either appear again in one event, or, hopefully, join Rhodes Island. For now I will leave it at good friends, but with the possibility of having good chemistry. Now we arrive at the first of one of my choices. Zarya and Silence. I know, pretty standard. One of the oldest ships in the community, which also had gotten a fair amount of discrepancies. Mostly because of how much Silence hates Zarya. But that's the thing, hate is not the contrary of love, that one will be indifference. No, hate is born from love. If Silence feels so strongly against Zarya, it's because there was a different sentiment before the events of the Flame Demon incident. As of right now, I don't think they could be a couple. If said event didn't happen, I think their development together would have been very, very different. On Silence's part, we know that she is determined, hardworking, and also very loyal to her friends and family. Zarya on her side had a very rough childhood, being brought to believe that strength is the only thing that matters in there, be it of brawn or of might. Most of these conceptions come from the Rain manga, where we can see a lot of their personalities beyond what we see in the game. Mostly how, despite how high her standards are, Zarya clearly sees Silence as a very smart individual, earning her trust and a big part of her respect. And while I doubt she even noticed it in that event, clearly seeing her and Ifrit as the family she never had. On her part, Silence openly mentioned that she admires both Control and Zarya, being the reason why she applied for Rain Labs in the very first place. Again, had it not been for the things that happened with Ifrit, Zarya and Silence could have become something more. Which makes it a bit hard for me, because clearly they are not something right now. There could be further development. I mean, I was completely blindsided by Silence Alder. If we do get a Zarya Alder, maybe things can finally balance it out. So yeah, I'm gonna say that in the past, they had very good chemistry. Maybe at the edge of being romantic, but for now, let's just leave it at good chemistry. Moving on, H asks for Vigil and Penance. One of the newest ships in the community, yet also a similar event as with Ceylon and Schwartz, in the sense that it is heavily implied that they have a brother-sister relationship. I mean, in Vigil files, he openly states to everyone that the relationship is that of siblings, with Penance doing very little to change said conceptions. However, there are two things that made me think that Leon might have feelings for Penance. Let me explain. The first example I can think of, it's in the Syracuse event, where once Penance discovered that Vigil's family had started a mafia war, she feels very betrayed by all of them, but especially by Vigil. And if you read the mini side stories, you will also see that this hit Leon real hard. We can see he's thinking how to apologize to Penance, but not in a way you apologize to a sibling. It felt more closer than that. Not to mention that by the end of the event, he is made to choose between his family and Penance. He chooses Penance. Also, when talking with the doctor, he is about to say that sometimes he sees her more as a... and then the files end because they got interrupted. So, at the very least, Vigil seems to be interested. And given that now they don't have the weight of the family behind them, maybe there could be something. On Penance's side, we do know they have very good relationship. Again, as brother and sister. And let's face it, she is a judge. Judges are supposed to be very impartial. So it wouldn't surprise me that she never gave Leon that much of a thought. Mostly because he was part of the family and she didn't want to get that much influence from them. Not to mention that she doesn't seem to be that very good at reading a character. I mean, it's shown again and again in the event that while she wants to be impartial, she just believes what she sees at face value. Be it Leon, her co-workers, or even a certain car washer. So, if Leon were to come forward, maybe she finally will realize what could happen between them. But for now, it will be a matter of fact if Leon will take said step. And I don't know about you, but technically they could get closer since they could be looking after a child together. Wooly asked about Irene and Lumen, one half of the Iberian love triangle. Lore-wise, while they did share a couple of lines in Stultiferan Abyss, apparently they didn't share much time together after it, with Irene going straight to Rhodes Island and Lumen being constantly busy with the Inquisitor's work, meaning that they couldn't see each other that much. Going to the few interaction they had, well, I won't deny they have good chemistry. It is stated that Lumen has a very welcome personality, making people to be calm around him. Irene, on the other hand, by that point in the story, had starting to question if the Inquisition could be the only answer to Iberia's problems. So while their personalities could interact well, I'm afraid this is a similar case as with Exia, as one of the parts could easily befriend almost everyone, and Irene on her part is trying to become someone more permissive and understanding of others. So while I can understand why this ship is so popular, I'm afraid I don't think they will go beyond friends. As mentioned, they don't have that much time to interact with one another, so while there could be something, I don't think there's enough information to say they are actually an item. Speaking of the other half of the triangle, Pikachu Fight Night asked about Irene and the Spectre. Unlike the previous spot, Irene and Spectre had a more dynamic interaction from the get-go. Granted, it's mostly because Lauretina is someone who really enjoys messing with people, and Irene just gives the best reactions. I mean, when voiced by Rie Kagumiya, who doesn't want to? With the Spectre becoming the new point of view for Irene regarding Aegir as a whole. Not to mention the events at the end of the Stultiferan Abyss, and both of their interactions in their operator records, where it's clear that both of them had a very good interaction with one another. To the point that Spectre ignited a love for dancing in Irene. Personality-wise, as I mentioned, Spectre seems to be someone who loves to tease people, but not just everyone. She's kinda amicable with pretty much everyone, but the teasing only increases the more comfortable she feels with someone. And currently, said someone seems to be Irene, even more than her teammates. So, while there's not much information, I think they have very good chemistry together. Again, romantic chemistry will be a bit difficult to say for sure. At the very least, the interaction of these two is something even the developers enjoy. So yeah, I will also give them the ship of approval. So sorry for the Lumen fans, but I'm afraid in this case, the shark wins. Okay, next one, I'm sorry if I say the name wrong. Kida Lanzametsu asks for the Doctor and Kejera, and then goes full Mordekaiser on us. Probably thinking that, oh no, the Doctor is but a reflection of an OC, a self-insert, it goes against my rules. Say psych right now. Because the Doctor is far from being a self-insert. Granted, they are not exactly the most interesting of characters, but they definitely had that. A character. To the point they even had a face. kind of. Which is a lot more I can say for most gacha protagonists. So yeah, they have a personality. Thus, there is something for me to analyze. Regarding to the video at hand, we have seen that the Doctor is not exactly dumb, as he understands and acknowledges the interest of other characters, namely Gravel and Platinum, and while he knows of their advances, he gently pushes them away. We don't know the reason behind it, but for now let's just say he's not interested. But again, for the sake of this video, let's say he is. A hard worker, a bit of a mess, and has amnesia. On the other side we have Kejera, one of the few full deities which joined Rhodes Island, and despite being such an important being, she doesn't mind working as a maid, meaning that she doesn't have that big of an expectation. And as we have seen of how she takes care of Pramaniks, she is used to dealing with slobs, with the Doctor being a bit more functional than the Snow Priestess. So, if they were interested in one another, I will say they could have very good chemistry. We do see them interact in a very comfortable way during the Break the Ice event, though I doubt they could go very far. Next one we have Soul the White Angel asking about Texas and Sora. While originally I thought of this ship mostly as a one-sided crush from Sora's part, Il Siracusano gives us a ton of new information. Namely, despite how clearly Sora shows her interest in Texas, she doesn't let that take over her world. Granted, the gears were to Siracusa to look for her, but once she knew and understood the reasons of why she was there, she didn't get in her way. Rather, she supported her. Which I don't know about you, but that's a very good start for a relationship. So that makes me see her less as a crush and more of a serious interest from her part. On Texas' side, at first I also thought that she didn't have any interest beyond just friendship. But again, Il Siracusano come to make a lot of changes. We got to see a more emotional side of Texas. I gonna take what I can get. To the point that when an old friend of hers, which she tried to kill mind you, end up being disposed by her previous family, Texas pretty much breaks down, showing us how important some individuals are for her. Now why is this important? Because on a previous scene, Texas was given the choice between her friend and her peaceful life, represented by Sora. Texas chooses Sora. While she has a very good friendship with Exia and Croissant, I guess, Sora is the one who represents a normal life, showing how important she is for Texas. So yeah, I think they have very good chemistry between the two of them. And again, because all the hints we were given during the event, I'm gonna say the developers are also interested in them, thus earning yet another chip of approval. Ironic, I know. Next is another selection of mine. Spectre and Skadi. I gonna be blunt? No. These two are nothing more than very good friends. I can still see why people thought this will be a couple at first, because of how desperate Skadi seemed to be about caring for Lauretina. But as the story developed, we now know that 1. Spectre was, as far as Skadi knew, the only remaining Abyssal Hunter, the only one she could actually call kin, which also now we know it's very important to her due to her blood. And Spectre awakening in the Salviento event, it was clear that they didn't have that deep of a connection. So yeah, I guess this is more a case of the desperation Skadi once felt, being confused with romantic feelings. Thus I'm afraid that this ship has gone to the tips. Next we have Esha Wasim. Wasim? Esha asking about Vigil and Dimitri. And now we have the other fraternal individual related with Vigil. Fratelli is the Italian word for brothers, and while in the Mafia it's a spot reserved for the most important individual behind the Don, here is taken in a more literal sense, with them having a very brotherly relationship. And while at the end of the event it is mentioned that they could become enemies, I'm not gonna believe them for 1 second, because they didn't give it 1 but 2 Rhodes sensors. So yeah, he's gonna join Rhodes Island sooner or later. They might get a quarrel or two, but it's not gonna last long. Back on topic. While they do keep a relationship between the Fratelli and this future boss, and there are some hints about something deeper, namely how much Dimitri was willing to do underhanded work in order to secure Liam's place as the new Don, meaning he was willing to sacrifice even himself if it meant giving Vigil an advantage in the Mafia world. But again, we have the problems of their own individual goals. As in the event, when given the choice, Vigil chose penance. No, he chose peace, while Dimitri still wants to keep to the old ways. So while there could have been something before, I doubt there could be any more. Again, while we don't have that much information, I think we can get a better idea once Dimitri joins the roster. But as for now, I guess I'm gonna leave them as friends. Yes, despite the inevitable conflict they're gonna have, I still think they could have a very good relationship with one another. Only time will tell. Eventually. Next we have Maya3 asking about Mizuki and Tequila. I will say this is another random ship if it wasn't for the fact that they did came out in the same event. Personality-wise, they could have very good chemistry. Not in the romantic sense though, as both of them showed a very friendly demeanor when in front of everyone. But both at the same time also have a more obscure self, reserved for more specific events. Lore-wise, well, they both join roads mostly because they have nothing else to do. And as far as I know, there isn't much of a goal in both of their sides, with Ernesto trying to find a new lease in life and Mizuki trying to understand his own life. If I were to pen things even a bit more, I will say that they could work out together, as a matter of fact. Their kind disposition will make interaction with them rather easy to follow, and could even help in each other's development. But again, there isn't much information besides what we have seen in Dos Soles. So while I can see it kind of working, I'm gonna leave them at good friends, mostly because of the lack of evidence. If there were to be more information, maybe I will bump them up a bit further. But for now, as friends, they stay. Next one. Gary asked about Liscram and Franka. Shape of approval. Moving on. Okay. Maybe a bit redundant, but let me explain. At first it seemed to be this typical conflicted pair, with the by-the-book member and the free spirit. But as the story went on, we got to know more about them, especially from the manga, where we knew that Franka always was a very serious individual, despite her apparent free spirit demeanor. Liscram, on the other side, is very determined and by the book, yet with a softer side, as seen with her interaction with Jessica, meaning that despite how hard she seems to be, she has a softer side. Also, they could be considered the proto-version of what Spectre and Irene will be, with how much Franka teases Liscram. But also there's the fact that of every ship in this list, these two are perhaps the ones with the most suggestive information about them, either on the operator's report, in the interactions they have in the game and events, and even in the mangas, to the point they have the biggest telling out of everyone. Liscram's goal in life is to have her very own mercenary company, so she can go back to Sargon and help her people with their work, something very personal for her. Yet, as time went on, she decided to postpone that dream in order to help Franka with her own dream of traveling the world. I don't know about you, but that's not something you do for just anyone. On Franka's side, we have seen that despite her lively demeanor, she actually likes to keep to herself, keeping it private when her own mother died. Yet once Liscram shows some concern regarding her sudden change of demeanor due to the aforementioned passing, Franka quickly opens up to Liscram, showing how much she cares for the little defender. So yeah, I don't think they even have good chemistry. They are the unofficial original ship of this community. Clearly a lot of information will come out if any of them manages to get an altar, or a skin in Franka's case. Coming up next, David Gutierrez asked about Gigi and Red. Considering Project Red's interest is only in Lupo's tales, I doubt he meant of Little Red Riding Hood. So I will be going with Red Katana Bro. While very short, the interaction between the two of them were, I'm gonna be honest, downright adorable. If I don't remember wrongly, I think the reason Red was in Quercus Bar to begin with was neither to drink, neither to keep tabs on the other members of Reunion, as he could contact them anytime he wanted, as shown in the event. I think he was there simply to be around Susie, just like that. I think this is another case that, had it not been from the event that transpired in the event, the story of these two could have gone very, very differently. Personality-wise, while Susie seems scared and afraid, that's mostly due to her arts. In fact, she's very hardworking and very friendly to pretty much everyone, willing to lend an ear to whoever passes her way. Red, on the other hand, clearly seems to be the reclusive kind, who only acts according to what needs to be done. Yet again, he goes out of the way to be near Susie, looking after her in the streets, and even going into the depths of a crumbling mobile city in order to save her. And while I feel sad that they haven't interacted again ever since, I think it's safe to say that they do deserve the ship of approval. At the very least, Nami and Mama seems to believe so. Now if only we can get that weave to join Rhodes Island. Next, my third and final choice, Silver Ash and Ratatos. Ratatos? I don't know how to say it. Why do I think this one could be? Well, for starters, they clearly have history together, with Ratatos admiring Silver Ash as a child, and Silver Ash even asking her to join in his trip to Victoria. Yet again, another ship that couldn't be because of the events surrounding them. And while when he returned she was no longer that interested in him, apparently at least, she still acted as the access he needed in order to move his plans forward. And while it can be left as they might have been interested in the past but nothing more happened later, there's one thing I would like to point out. As memeable as this in it speaks volumes of the respect Silver Ash still has for Ratatos. Yes, it was a trap. He knew it was a trap, and yet he walked in his own accord. And once the fire spread, he didn't try to go out. One will say, well, there was his guards and the Black Knight, of course he was gonna get saved. But he didn't knew that. As a matter of fact, the Black Knight needed to be convinced in order to save him. Had it not been for the Doctor, she might have not acted out. So why did he just waltz in into Ratatos' trap? And why he didn't try to go out? Because she asked him to stay with her to the very end. Again, I don't know about you, but that's not something you do for just anyone. He was willing to let go of his plans of literally dying because she asked him to. Granted, it would have been a bigger mess had Ratatos succeed, but it shows that, at the very least from Silver Ash's part, there seems to be way more than just respect for the matriarch. Which makes me think that, could things have been different? Could have very high chemistry. I really hope, I really hope Ratatos joins Rod one day in the future. But just hoping for my part, as with everyone in this list. Coming up next, Gregory, yes, I looked up how to say that name, asks about Phantom and Shalem. Again, another case in which both characters have a similar background, and thus the ship sails around that idea. But unlike Executor and Framebringer, these two do have some history together. It's just that it's not as close as one will think. The lore goes that once Phantom took care of the troop and unintentionally released a lot of the former members, Shalem took the opportunity to flee. For once because he despised the life in the troop, and second, because he was terrified about Phantom. Well, he did single-handedly exterminate the ones who were pretty much their captors. I would be afraid as well. Yet, there's also the fact that Shalem were among the people who went to rescue him, as seen in some of the endings of the IS-2 event. However, besides that event, they don't seem to have done much interactions with one another. It's mostly the case of two, not even childhood friends, more like co-workers who have history together, but it doesn't go further than that. Personality-wise, well, Phantom is a mess, and Shalem doesn't want to do anything with the troop, and those related to them. If he went to rescue Phantom, it was mostly because Rhodes directly asked him to do so, given he knew about the trope and the castle's layout. So he didn't act from the bottom of his heart. So while I can see why people ship them together, I'm afraid I can't see it. Both personality and lore are completely against them in this case. They might bump up into friends if we were to get more information about them. But as it is right now, I'm afraid these two stay just as co-workers. Next we have Corona asking about Golden Glow and Quercus. I think this is the one time I will say that these two are meant to be seen as sisters, as Quercus was simply Golden Glow's boss. Granted, she did teach her a lot and it helped her to get used to the life in the city. But that's the thing, Quercus is the kind of individual who will help anyone, especially those younger than her. And as mentioned before, Susie is a very kind and friendly individual. So of course Quercus' big sister instincts kicked in order to protect her. So even if I were to bend them a little more in order to try to get them into a relationship, I don't think they could go that much beyond just friends. Again, they could have very good chemistry, but I highly doubt it would be of the romantic kind. Because of this, I'm afraid I'm gonna leave them as just friends. Next we have Hugh the Lego Creator, interesting name, as for Diurnar and Frostleaf. Some of you might think, wait, isn't Frostleaf too young for this? For starters, she drinks, so I'm pretty sure she's considered an adult. Regarding the story between these two, the trope about enemies to lovers is pretty well known. Though in their case it wasn't so much enemies, more like they were on different sides of a conflict and well, now they work for the same company. Personality-wise, Diurnar is another individual with a very strong honest power, though nowhere near as marked as let's say Quercus or Wishlash. She really cares for those under her command, as she sees them as her little brothers and sisters. Frostleaf on her side is a bit more of the reclusive kind. Clearly working for Rhodes has helped her mental state, yet I don't see her trying to make a relationship out of just anyone. Mostly because of the fear of losing them once more. Lore-wise, again, we do know they know each other. But other than respect from one another, I don't see them having that much chemistry together. It could be, but I'm afraid that for now we don't have that much information about them. So until further development, I'm afraid I only see these two as friends. Coming up next, Spartan asks about Ashley and Sona, the two squirrels of the Pinus Silvestris. While the members of the Pinus Silvestris are a very tight group, the relationship between Ashlock and Flametail is the more evident of the four. While having not the best of the starts, Sona clearly worked hard to earn Ashley's respect, to the point that Ashley, a former noble, sees Sona as their leader. I don't mean that in a frivolous sense. Despite the years of knowledge and experience Ashley will have over Sona, she still decides to keep control to the Flametail. Sona on her part, while being very close to all the girls, has shown to be a bit closer to Ashley, namely during the attack on the Armorless Union, when Sona, with her light armor, jumped in front of an arrow meant for Ashley, who has heavy armor and a shield. Not to mention that right after this event, where Ashlock thought that Sona had died, she went completely ballistic, caring not for her safety or even her life if it meant she could take down Roy with her. But at the same time, the instant she knew Sona was safe and sound, she immediately regained her senses and disengaged the combat, showing how much they meant to one another. I mean, during the very same event, we have a moment in which Ivona could have been taken for death, yet none of them reacted in such a way. So yeah, I think this is another case of them having very good chemistry, with even a couple of hints pointing at a possible romantic interest. For this point and the aforementioned event, I will also grant them the ship of approval, as clearly the two of them being this close is not by accident. Next we have Jesse Julius Brauker asking for Modrock and Big Bob. This one might seem as a random ship, but we have to remember that the two of them had been stated to be very good friends from the time in Reunion. with Big Bob being a very kind and brotherly individual, and Modrock also being the same. She's just a bit too pragmatic. Seriously, the events of Woolament would have been solved so much faster if she just stopped talking in poems. However, there is one bit of information that makes me think that they don't have a thing for one another, at least not beyond friendship. They both left Reunion around the same time, and yet they decided to go their separated ways. While you could say it was mostly because they have their own groups to look after, if there's something we have seen in Terra, is that the strength comes in numbers. So the fact they decide to go their separate ways clearly shows that romance is not the kind of relationship they have. However, I will not deny that the two of them could be very good friends, seeing as how Modrock still keeps in contact with Big Bob. Hopefully said friendship will be the opportunity we need to rescue Big Bob from the IRS. Next we have our lady asking for Corroserum and the Doctor. No. Sorry to break it to you, but no. While Corroserum has shown some interest in the Doctor, it has been stated to be of the professional kind. You could say it's similar to Silver Ash, but even Silver Ash seems to have a deeper meaning of his interest than Corroserum. Regarding their personalities, well, the Doctor is another individual that can earn the trust of everyone with relative ease. So at the very least, I think they could be very good friends, given how he can understand Corroserum to a personal level. But beyond that, I'm afraid I just can't see it. JA's OTA, I have no idea what that means, ask about Bison and Texas. Just friends. While he's another character which I will say that is barely an adult, they are just friends. For once I think he has half her age, but second, I don't think they could have that kind of relationship. Granted, they could have good chemistry in a professional sense. Bison is someone who goes by the book and is very good at organizing. Texas on her part is very good at following orders, making them a rather good team. Romantic wise though, I'm afraid I simply can't see it. And finally, Shims asks about Ifrit and Eya. Should I call the FBI or should I not? For one side, Eya is already a graduate. Granted, it has been stated that she's a genius, but even if she jumped a couple of years, I would say she'll be around the 18 years mark. Ifrit on the other hand is a bit harder. Not only because of how she looks, but also because of her mental development. While she seems to look around 16 to 17, her mind could be around 14. But then again, that was at the beginning of the game. By Ifrit's first operator record, sometimes seems to have happened. So I will say she will be mentally more developed, probably closer to her body age. So, you know what? I will allow it. Regarding personalities, well, I think they could have very good chemistry together. Non-romantic chemistry, mind you. As Eya is the kind of individuals who can easily adapt to others. And while Ifrit is a bit fresh and arrogant, we have also seen that she can be very kind and caring depending on the individual. Also, if Ifrit operator record happened after the events of the manga, I will say that maybe Eya reminds her a bit of Daria. That will explain the nickname for her. Also, as seen in said operator record, we can see that while Ifrit is her arrogant self, Eya doesn't seem to mind, as Eya seems to understand that Ifrit Bravado is just the way she acts. So while a romantic relationship could be possible given their personalities, I will say that for now, they're very good friends. So, rest easy, Shims. There will be no need to call the FBI. And that's everything she wrote. Personally, I was expecting more random ships. I mean, we did get a couple of those, but still. Maybe we'll try it again next year if this video gets enough views and likes. For now, I would like to reiterate a point from my previous iteration of this video. I really love how the whole world does not circle around the main characters. Sure, it could have easily have every girl fall for the Doctor's bones, but that will make the experience very unrealistic in my humble opinion. making everyone having their own interests and preferences makes this whole world so much organic, and thus far more enjoyable. But what about you? Which ships do you think have the more potential? Or what do you think of the constant trope of teasing the fans? Should it be kept, or should some couples be allowed to get their happy endings? Be sure to share your thoughts in the commentaries down below. Who knows, with enough voices, maybe we can make a change in the industry. I would also like to thank Andrew Leknovsky, whose music you hear as the background of this video. If you feel like wanting to experience something new and exciting, be sure to head over his channel. You won't be disappointed. For now, this has been Doctablock, wishing you all a great day, as well as reminding you to love freely so long there is mutual consent. And until next time, stay healthy everyone.